morning. Thanks for coming on the wee hours of July 21st. We had 33 people from Hampton head out to Guatemala, and It really was life-changing, and we did both construction work and also relational ministry. And we're going to have Emily and Faith talk a little bit about what they did. They were on two different teams. One worked in the community center, and the other did a couple different jobs. And then we'll have some time for question and answers.
Okay, that video was like, I missed that so much. Okay, I'm gonna start by saying I was one of the, we split up into groups. Faith, like 10 of them went to another work site, which was what Faith was gonna talk about, and I went to the community center with the rest of the group. That was the big building you saw in the beginning where we were all sweeping floors and sweeping the floors and chipping the floors away. That was a building that was going to be for, it was a place to hold over 700 kids, to teach them, feed them, and have Sunday school classes. It's just a big building to basically, because they were in a church before that was too small for all of them, so they wanted to build something bigger so all the village kids could go there. And it was just amazing because when we were there, we did a couple things. We chipped away at floors. It seemed tedious and pointless, but to them it was something really big, and we needed to level out the floor so they could tile them. Also, we were making concrete, pouring it into the ground. We were cleaning debris, just nothing tedious work, but it meant a lot to them. Also, there were the water cisterns that were there, where we had to go down into the ground where there was just water, and that was one of the tedious jobs because we had to take a sponge and literally just soak up the floor and put it into a bucket. And we'd go back the next day and there'd be more water in there because of the rain, because the rain from outside flowed into these cisterns, and that was where they were going to get their water from for the kids. Something amazing about that place was the kids that were there, because the kids in the village around would just come in and they were so willing to help us. And the guy that was in charge of everything told us that the kids usually would stand off and not really come in and help us, but when we were there, they were more than willing to help us, and it was just really cool to see that. And so something else we did during the week, which you also saw in the video, was we went to a woman named Rose that owns an orphanage called Rosa de Amor, and it's an orphanage for mistreated children, raped girls, abused kids, and everything. And the cool thing about it was that Rosa let these kids stay past the age of 18 because she wanted it to make them feel like they were more at home and not really push them out of it. And it was just a really cool place because these kids were so loving and so giving, and they were grateful for everything they have. And they even, like, all these little girls had these little bracelets on, and they barely have everything, but they would give us their bracelets just because they were that grateful for us to be there and just play with them. We played soccer with them, played on the jungle gym with them like you saw in the video, just spent time with them. And even though that language barrier was a struggle, it was amazing to see how that didn't matter, and you could still have that connection with all these kids and even the adults, and I don't know, it was just really cool. So yeah, she showed us around there. They have little classrooms in there where they teach them. We played soccer. I showed them their blacktop, how they wash their clothes, their kitchen, and they were just so excited to just tell us everything and show us everything. And I just thought that was a really amazing experience as well. And then we also went up to, in the video you saw, there was just like kids running around on top of all of our shoulders. And that was at the top of a village called San Felipe. Team Effort did a project up there years ago, but they keep going back just to visit them and give them love and see how they're doing. And they've developed that special relationship with those kids and those people there. So we went there. We would just stay there for hours and play with the kids. We would play soccer, that big group of soccer that they were playing, and we would try our best to talk with them. Faith was really good at it. She was like our only girl that could speak Spanish, but so yeah, we had like little conversations with them. They would play with our hair. We would just run around, play hide and seek, play tag, and the kids loved it. And I thought that was really cool how, I don't know, it's like almost it leaves me speechless because it's just, they're so happy all the time just to see us. Like they would see us coming up the hill and just run and like jump on us, and they were so excited, and we went for like 3 days straight. So most of us got to develop like little relationships with the kids, and there was one that like I fell in love with. His name was Moses, and he was attached to me like the entire time. And when we were leaving the last day, we were getting onto the bus, and before the door closed, he ran back up on the bus to give me a hug, and that put me in tears. I miss that little kid. And then, yeah, so the way it impacted me, I feel it leaves me speechless. Like the way that they're so grateful for things makes you come home. And while we were there, we were talking about how most often when you go on a mission trip, the groups, like all of us, we get a mission trip high where you're like so like on top of the mountain, on top of your faith, like you just want to do everything, go out and tell everyone. But when you come home back to reality, truthfully, it is really easy to lose grip of that with like all the distractions of everyday teenage life, which you know how that goes. And but for me, I feel like this mission trip particularly, I kept a stronger grip of, and I think about it every day. Like there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it. I still pray for those little Guatemala people. And while we were there, our chapel, we had chapel every night, and the base of that was that God, make God your foundation, which is what I took from it the most, because you often build your life on other things, and you want to, I don't know, like, if you keep building on other things and God's not there, it's going to crumble, and that's what I took from it the most. It's simple, but it means a lot to me that God is there always, and some people and things are temporary, but, you know, yeah. I don't even know what to do with that, but, and something from my devotion app that I have on my phone that hit home when thinking about Guatemala was, I read this, and it says, that it's so beautiful to know that the God we serve is not meant for just one race or one nation or one language. He's a God who saves everyone. And I thought that really did hit home and really was perfect for the situation, because even though we were all so different from these people in Guatemala, like we couldn't even speak a fluent conversation with them half the time, but that connection was still there. We were all simply one, and we're all alike because we serve the same God and we share the same love of God, and I think that's really and really powerful in ways that I can't explain. So that's what it did for me, and it was just eye-opening and amazing and life-changing, and I will never forget it. It's something I'll hold on to forever. And I'm thanking my parents like every day for pushing me to go to youth group when I was young and antisocial and awkward. And I'm not, and I'm going to push my little brothers to do the same thing, because it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
So, as Emily said, I was in the second work group that we had in Guatemala, which was a group of 10 of us. And we did different jobs throughout the week. So on the very first day, what we did is we went to help pour a concrete foundation for a woman's home. The church was building a new home for her, and each week different groups had gone to help create that foundation and lay it out. And we were the group that got to like pour the cement and the hard foundation for that. This woman had, I think she had like 5 or 6 children, but she at the time was also living with her mother and her sister and their children. And so she was going to have this new place for her and her family to live and her kids to grow up. And they're going to give plumbing to her and a safe place and make sure that she was provided for, because she previously had not been provided for. And to meet her and to be able to help with that was just so special, because we knew that we were giving these kids a safe place to live and to be. On the second day, we went to a homeless feeding center, and we helped to sand down and revarnish the hallway floor, and also to repaint the medical clinic that they ran inside of there. And that was really special too, because it was a place that those who couldn't get food could come get help, or those who couldn't get medical care could come, and they know that they wouldn't be turned away and that they would be helped regardless. And so we got to be a part of that. And on the last 2 days, we went and we helped at the work site with the other group to chip away the concrete, take the water out of the cisterns, and help mix new concrete to put up on the walls and meet all these children. But when our group was there, it was kind of like sometimes there just wasn't enough work for us to do because it was at the end of the summer and they had gotten a lot done. And so on the second day, a couple of members of our group took a lot of the kids that were running around and we took them up to a little convenience store. We bought them all pops and chips and drinks, and they love lollipops. If they see you with a lollipop, they will follow you until they get a lollipop. And so we had this huge group of kids with us, and we took them all and we fed them and we gave them something to drink, and we played with them for a few hours because we just knew that it was a place for them to be, and we need to reach out to them too. And they were so willing to help us with the work that they were doing, and they just so badly wanted to be a part of this community center that was going to be for them. And so we got to establish a very special relationship with the kids that were at that work site also. And like Emily said, we went up to a village called San Felipe, and we played with all the little kids there. And we also got to hear a testimony from a woman down in the village who had a newborn daughter. And we got to meet some of the people that live down there and go see their houses and their living conditions as well. And every day to just go, and the way that it worked is, Emily said that the kids came down to meet us, but there was this huge stairwell to go all the way up to where there was this cross that overlooked the city. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then you had to again go up another steep, pretty tall hill, and that at the top was the village there. And the kids would meet us at the top of the stairwell, and then they'd play with us for a bit by the cross and overlooking the city, and then we'd finally make our way all the way to the top. And for hours we would just play with these children, and for the girls, the mothers braided our hair while we played with their kids. And we gave them bracelets and they gave us bracelets, and we learned to play a lot of different games. And the language barrier didn't seem to matter for anyone. Like, some of us knew some Spanish, some of us knew no Spanish, some of us could converse with them, but we all still were just able to have fun with each other, regardless of what the communication was or anything. And we just run around and play for hours on end. And it was so much fun to know that every day we could go back and those kids would still be there waiting for us to come and to play with them. And that was so special, and something that was just amazing about the trip too. Another thing that we got to do is one day we met a merchant at a market that Team Effort had established a relationship with. His name was Carlos, and he was persecuted in the market that he worked at for being a Christian. And Team Effort had actually met him this way. They witnessed him being persecuted one day, and they came to his rescue and saved him from these people that were making fun of him for believing in God. And so we got to hear his testimony, but unfortunately we weren't able to go to his place of work to do so. We actually went to a McDonald's, which had this huge courtyard in it because everything there is open air. And he shared with us about his life and his faith in God and the trials that he had. And he gave us all these special bracelets that we have, and they all have the different colors on them that mean different things. So the one is black, and that's for our sins. And then there's red, which is for the blood shed on the cross for us. Blue for our baptism. White for the ascension into heaven. Green for our spiritual growth. And yellow for eternal life. And to meet someone that had so much against him and so much happened to him, but he had such a strong faith in God, and his foundation was so good. And he was just so uplifting and happy, and it was great to meet him. But we also got these shirts from him, which almost most of us that went have them on. And they have these different patterns on them, which I'm sure you're wondering what they mean. So there's this down arrow. Jesus came down to earth. He died on the cross. He was buried in the tomb, ascended into heaven, and will come back down to earth again one day. And these shirts were everywhere around, but it's a special message that you can share with everyone. And like, so if someone's like, what does your shirt mean? You can just share it with them and remember the trip and how special it was. This trip also had a huge impact on me. Like Emily said, we all said that we didn't want to come off of our mission trip high when we came back. But this mission trip was my first, but every day I still think of it. I think of the children and the people that I met and how loving they were towards me and how happy they were, but they had nothing. And they just were smiling all the time and joyous and grateful for everything that they had. And I know that I think now about how happy they were and try to remind myself that I'm blessed with so much, and I just have to remember to be joyous for what I have. Another way that this has impacted me is in my college decisions. I'm now contemplating going into a cross-cultural ministry major, and I could see myself just doing this and meeting people and sharing God's love with them and helping them, because they were so grateful and joyous towards me that I just want to go out and spread that with everyone now.
Why don't the kids who went come up
If you
here
went,
and
go
then
up.
you guys,
If you went on the show.
people can ask questions and we'll try to not all speak at once. But questions?
How are your soccer skills relative to those kids?
I played soccer for a lot of years before I switched to cross country, and they danced around me.
They had a dog that was
I was
better.
gonna say, I don't know if you saw the dog in the video, but they had a dog who, was just running around and was amazing the whole time.
Before the pickup game started, we were all just in a ring passing it, and you had to make a good pass or else the dog would jump on it. And he wouldn't just take the ball and run off, he would just hit it once to make you aware that you're bad at soccer.
Brian, maybe you guys could just talk a little bit about the donations to the orphanage that you guys did.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that happens when you travel with young, naive teenagers is they just don't understand why things can't happen right away. So we found out that Rosa de Amor, where we went to that orphanage, had a van that had bald tires. And driving in Guatemala is not it's not that bad, but it's not, let's just say you wouldn't want bald tires anywhere, right? But you especially wouldn't want bald tires on some of these hills that you're on. So all the kids are like, well, we should donate money. And I'm in my head going, oh man, I gotta do this and this and this and this. And I was like, okay. So what they wanted to do is that they wanted to do the donation right then. So I said, okay, fine. I'm gonna collect your pledges. So they went around and they came to me and they told me how much they were going to pledge, because some of them had spent too much money on the souvenirs. They didn't have any money left, which made eating on the last day interesting now, didn't it? But what was cool was that there was no no hesitancy from the kids. They're like, we need to do this, we need to do it now. And I was like, okay, great. So I went to Ashley, and Ashley's like, well, you'll need to do it in cash. I was like, in cash? I was like, that's a lot of cash. And she's like, yeah. She's like, but there's no other way to handle this. So David Shutt and I go trekking through Antigua, Guatemala, and go to an ATM and withdraw the equivalent of $600 worth of money, and then walk back through Antigua. And Jeff had gone to get coffee, so our personal bodyguard. But what was cool was that once we counted up the pledges, we actually collected more money than we actually had even donated while we were there. So we'll actually be finding a way to get them the additional funds. And a lot of it came from the students who just said this is important and it matters. So that was really cool.
Can I talk about Ashley for a sec?
Yes.
Ashley was this amazing person that, I mean, I know I personally didn't even meet until like the evening of like our first day. Team effort was awesome. They picked us up at the airport with a giant sign that said team effort. And, you know, they were really excited to see us. We actually ended up having 2 counselors that we had at Tennessee last year. So it was great. And at the first night of, it wasn't really, it was kind of chapel, but it was more just a meeting of here's what you'll be doing tomorrow when you start. There was this quiet blonde woman, and her name was Ashley. And she turned out, she is now like one of my heroes. And I'll just say it takes a lot to be my hero, not really. But Ashley really went above and beyond the call of a hero to a young teenager. She had been in Guatemala for, I think, 6 years, and she had such a relationship with the people in San Felipe. Her Spanish was awesome. She was my personal translator when Faith was not around. But she would just talk to these kids, and then there would be times where she'd be like, oh yeah, see that kid, I've known them since they were born, or, you know, like, you know, they'd come up to her and she was like an aunt or just this person that they wanted to be with. And I mean, I know I have those people here, but I have a lot more than those kids do. Like, those kids pretty much only have their family, and that's it. And to have someone that you can look at too like that, I'm sure it means a lot to them. And there was actually one of the women in the village actually had the newborn, and she had named her Ashley. And I didn't ask, but I did assume, which I guess, I hope I didn't assume incorrectly, that she named her after Ashley, because Ashley has helped that village so much. And like, it's one of those things, like, I've set the bar for myself now, and I set it very, very high. And I'm intimidated, but at the same time, I know that God got Ashley to where she is, and God can get me to where Ashley is.
And that really wasn't an assumption. All the other kids had very Guatemalan names, and she's introducing them. We're like, and this is Ashley. And we're like,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things about just to add on to that, one of the things about the organization that we've worked with the last couple of years, which is called Team Effort, is that they value going to the same spot every summer, just because it allows those relationships to be built and those connections to happen. So as we walked through the village, she showed us, oh, these were the steps that we built. These were the people who we helped, and I value that a lot, that ongoing connection. And everybody in that village, as Britton said, everyone knew Ashley. Every single person knew Ashley. And Ashley knew every single one of their names. And she's there for 9 weeks during the summer.
I just wanted to say that my grandson Brian brought me a beautiful statue of an angel. And the man who he bought it from was so thrilled. My daughter Nancy brought me a small dish with a scene, a Christmas scene. I mean, everybody was on that scene on a little plate that they made.
The children at the orphanage, were they ever adopted, or did they stay there from the time they got there until the time they aged out?
From the conversation I had with Ashley, or maybe it was with you.
Yeah. Guatemala changed all of their adoption laws. They do not allow any adoptions outside of the country for fear of baby selling or baby kidnapping. So once they changed all these laws about 2 years ago, there's really no way for these children to get adopted. As the statistics showed at the beginning, there's so much poverty that the only people that would tend to adopt a child would be a very rich family who might, the concern is that they would end up using the child as a servant. So most of those kids will either stay in the orphanage, or if they don't have the opportunity to go to an orphanage, they'll be on the street their whole lives.
But
Rosa, I worked with, in the kitchen while some of the kids were playing, and Rosa told us that any of the children that couldn't make it on their own, even when they were 18, they were allowed to stay in that, like, little community they had in the back, and they would still help them.
And one of the things, when we got there, they were just finishing up an English class. So, you know, she helps to teach the kids English, which, you know, I think helps them to get ahead in society. So she really, you know, tries to minister to all their needs.
One of the neat things about this, the orphanage was on our tour was just how neat and clean it was. Like, it would put most of our rooms, including mine, to shame. And in talking to Ashley, one of the things that she said is that's very intentional. That at the orphanage, it's not just that they cleaned it up because visitors were coming. She really values the structure and in training kids to have patterns and habits that are healthy and providing that structure and stability.
Rose also had a son, I don't know how old her son was, who's special needs kid, and he fell and was crying, and immediately there were 3 or 4 of the other kids who had been playing with us, who immediately stopped to go to run to her son. So you could really see they were a family. It was neat that they cared for each other.
Another thing about the orphanage is before we left, we talked about donating clothes to them, and the first night we left like a whole bench full of clothes, and they were collected and washed, and then the next day we left even more, and so a lot of us went home without most of the clothes that we brought with us, and we donated them all to the orphanage.
Really, we had to make room for the hot chocolate and coffee. Brought back, so I could have those socks.
The cistern, that big building that we were working on, underneath that entire floor is a cistern, which is going to supply water to the entire village down below. So, you know, it's a neat project because there's going to be classrooms there. There's that big central meeting area for the village to get together. There's a little apartment that, you know, somebody's going to live at who's going to run the programs. And the cistern wasn't ready to be operational at the time, which is why we had to have people go down there. And luckily, it wasn't as rainy as it was, you know, it's typically during the rainy season. So as the week progressed, we didn't have a lot of rain, and so the job got to be less and less intense. But how, for the people in the cistern, how deep was the water the first day?
The first day was like here. The second day was about half that, and then as like the days went on, it got lower. But we only did one the first day because it was so high, and then occasionally we'd get done with the first one and we'd go and hop into the next one because there was 3, but 1 was done and 2 weren't. And by the end of the week, we got all the other 2 done and they painted them. But they don't have much supplies, so we'd like be taking buckets and then putting them up, and they're like 10 feet in the air. So there's 3 of us under this bucket, pushing it up, and someone's over it, pulling it, and we carry it, and then people steal our buckets, and we're down here like, we don't have any buckets, so we're just standing in this. And one time, well actually a couple times, we didn't have a ladder to get more people in. So I was one of the ones that was down there, and like Emily had to come down, and I was like, jump, and she jumped down, and I caught her to put her in. Yeah.
Some stories we leave in Guatemala.
It's okay, it worked out well.
Well, in the cisterns too, like the first day, I don't even know what I expected, but naturally I was like, yeah, I'll go in the creepy dark place, you know, and I just jumped in. It like, the only way I can describe it is it looked like a grave. It was like an elephant huge grave. Like I was just like, what? And then you're trudging around the water that you didn't even know what was in. But like, it sounds weird because it was like the weirdest situation, but I had fun in the system.
Yeah.
Like I would do it again.
That was the best job. we put a little flashlight about this big on one of the pipes going across it, and that was our light.
You said that there would be 700 children that would come to this community center. How many miles away would they come from, or was the village that well populated?
I mean, it was in the middle of like a village. There were a lot of kids, but I don't know.
Most families have a lot of kids also, so
Yeah.
and it was a pretty large village. So if each family had like 4 or 5 kids, it could easily get to that many. But it would be open to anyone that would want to.
They walk there.
Yeah.
Linda.
I'd like to know maybe some of your most favorite parts of the trip, maybe your most memorable, your most eye-opening. Can we hear from a couple of you?
Well, as many of you might have heard, in Guatemala, I kind of wanted to tell the story, so I don't know. Well, I got left behind. I was going to say lost, but I wouldn't really say lost. I'd say left behind is a better word for that. Well, like, there was a group of us who went to the marketplace. It was like the second night we were there, you know, we didn't really know what we were doing. We're all kind of clueless. And they, like, left without me. And I guess they forgot that I was with them, or, I don't know, but I guess that's a discussion for another day. Anyway. I was frantically trying to find someone who knew English in this marketplace, and these younger girls, they didn't really know any English. They took me to this older lady who did, and her name was Lydia, and she was wonderful. And she could tell that I was pretty nervous. My voice was shaky, and I didn't really know Spanish anyway, so I was just kind of like trying to, I don't know. But she kind of sat me down in her little marketplace. She cleared off a chair for me, and she was just eagerly talking to me, like, you know, asking why I was there, what I was doing, and she kind of told me a little bit about her and like her family and stuff. And we just were talking, and she said, just stay put, you know, your group will come back for you. Almost 2 hours later, they didn't. So I was locked in a room when this happened. I was her roommate, and my own mother locked me in the room while I was in the shower. And so she decided that she would take me back herself. And I mean, in my mind, I'm just thinking, I really hope this isn't shady. I really hope that God knows what's happening right now, and He's watching over me. But the whole time, I kind of just did feel, although I just met this woman, I mean, she didn't know that well of English. We were just sort of saying what we could to each other and whatever. I mean, I feel like I could trust her a lot more than some of the people I trust that I meet here in America. I don't know, like, I feel like God was sort of watching over me the whole time, and He was with me. And yeah, although I was really nervous the whole time, we're like her husband came and he like took us back to my hotel. I was just thinking, this is so shady, like this is terrible. But I didn't want to call Brian because he told us not to use our phones. He didn't tell us that this would be an okay exception to use our phones.
They won't listen to half of what I say, but that one they stuck to it.
Yeah, and I don't know, but she took me back to my hotel, and every day thereafter I went and visited her, and I was like, you know, she was just like one of my best friends there in Guatemala. Like, she meant so much to me, and I don't know, it sucks that I'll probably never see her again or anything like that, but that was just really meaningful to me. And what she said to me, like, I just couldn't understand why she would, although I think she was pretty well off in Guatemalan standards, it's like, obviously she doesn't have as much as, like, you know, Americans have and whatever, but she, like, went out of her way, like, she left her marketplace thing just to kind of spend time with me and, you know, make sure I was okay, and, like, she just took such an interest in me, and, like, that's really special to me, because, come on, even my group didn't take that much of an interest in me. And she had said to me, like, I was just like, well, I tried to offer her money, like, I couldn't really thank her enough, like, I had no idea how to express how much, like, this meant to me, that she did this for me. And she said, well, this is different, this is helping the human spirit. And I wrote a paper about that in English last week, and it meant a lot to me, and I hope I never forget that, because it was really special. Yeah.
Did you drink your water?
No.
Well,
So you had to carry water with you?
We had a filter. Team Effort supplied like filtered water that we just had in like a little dispenser thing, so we'd fill up our water bottles, but we couldn't use the sinks or anything. And
we had to ask in restaurants for agua pura, which is pure water, and they gave you a bottle of water. You also had to, if you got a drink other than water, so if you got pop or something, you had to ask for it without ice, because the ice was not always guaranteed to be made from the pure water. So you couldn't have ice in your drinks, and you had to only drink bottled water. And that applied to like brushing your teeth too. You had to take a bottle of water and use it to pour over your toothbrush because you couldn't stick it in the sink.
Although in fairness, this was a hotel we were
Yeah.
staying in. I mean, we were not buffets. I mean, my greatest frustration was I had to stay 2 feet from Jeff Brodigan. The door is like a wild boar. But that was like the greatest hardship. I mean, this is a really nice place.
It was tight.
It was tight. It was real tight.
Hey, you weren't in a room with 12 girls.
Yeah, there was
12 girls.
Yeah,
and
that's
it was
fine.
nice. There was just like all of us to
You guys in my room.
Three of our boys got put in Harry Potter's bed.
I have to say, I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything, but just to kind of sum up at least my experience, the thing that I didn't realize that no one really prepared me for was how much I would miss Guatemala. Like, there are still days I wake up and I just want to be like, I want to be in Guatemala right now. I kind of don't want to be here. And yes, school does affect that. But like the first 2 days after I got home, I was like, yes, I'm home. You know, I can see my family. I don't have to have a spotty internet connection to FaceTime them. And then, you know, my mom and I are yelling things back and forth through the phone. And the Guatemalan people are looking at me like I'm crazy. And, but like after like 2 days, I woke up and I just realized like I couldn't hear Brian and everyone laughing outside my window, outside my window, because I naturally got put right next to a window, and I could hear them every morning talking and laughing and having fun, and it was like, these guys have really become my second family, my extended family even, like, I'm not going to put them in second. And I missed being, even though it was tight quarters, with them and being in this beautiful place, because the only way I can describe it is it was almost like paradise. Even though there were people, who were begging on the streets, you would have people just randomly, they didn't even know you. You're just walking down the street and they yell, "Good morning, buenos dias," and you're just like, "Buenos dias, I don't even know you, but I'm willing to say good morning," because they wanted to. Antigua was, we were told it was like the Paris of Guatemala, and it wasn't just an intimate Paris. It didn't mean, oh, I'm gonna go with my boyfriend and go to the kissing fountain that we experienced quite a bit.
There was a lot of people.
Yeah, it was, I am going to love you like you're my family, even though I just met you. And in my thank you letters, for my support letters, when I got back, I decided that the theme, for at least me, for Guatemala, was a line from Les Miserables. In the end, there is a line in the finale song where it says, "To love another person is to see the face of God," and that I was in Guatemala. I didn't even listen to Les Mis on my iPod while I was there, but that's what I kept hearing in the back of my head, was a voice going, "To love another person is to see the face of God," and that was truly what Antigua was to me.
Yeah, like what Britton said. I come back and I was like, hi, and all these Americans are looking at you like, why are you saying hello to me? And I'm like, oh, awkward. And then I was just talking with, I'm looking at colleges, so I was talking with someone, and they're like, yeah, we like to do mission trips, like we go to Guatemala, and I was like, wait, where in Guatemala? Like, where do you go? Because I just went there and I want to go back.
Any of the sophomores?
Real quick, it is 10:50. So what I would propose is that you guys stay here. If you want to ask them questions, stick around. If you're going to 11 o'clock though, you probably should start to get on your way. So I don't want to break up the fun, but so people are welcome to stick around. But some of us need to slip out.
I was like, oh,